Okay, this is it. We're starting the Odyssey. Now, before we actually get into the story, there are 5 steps that I need you to keep in mind as we go along reading this epic adventure story of Odysseus. So, these 5 steps are things you can do to help you understand an epic story. First things first, epics are generally very long. Now, that means that you have to do a few things as we go along to make sure that you keep track of all of the pieces. Now, I will be checking at random times throughout our time here online to make sure you are doing these 5 steps. So make sure you're doing them at all times because you never know when I'm going to ask or to see to make sure that you're doing these 5 steps. So I'm going to change your view to the board. So these 5 steps, I'll have them in a PDF file for you on OSS Connect, but I wanted to show them to you here as well before we get started. So the first step to understanding an epic poem is to keep track of the events. A lot is going to be going on in this adventure story, guys. So you're going to have to keep track. You can do this in a couple different ways. You can make a list as we go along of the things that Odysseus does and the things that he faces. The second step is to visualize the imagery. It's really important, you guys, that you're kind of using your imagination to imagine what is being described by this story. It will really help you remember what's going on. Also, you're going to have to really notice that figurative language, onomatopoeia, hyperbole, metaphor, simile. All of that stuff is used for a reason. You're going to have to be able to recognize it, notice it, and kind of connect to why it's helping the story be better. You're also going to have to read the difficult passages more than once if you really want to understand it. So I'm going to be reading the story out loud to you here on YouTube. You're also going to need to read it yourself and go through difficult passages more than once. Now, epic stories, epic poems are meant to be read out loud, you guys. A lot of poetry, a lot of these old stories were verbally handed down to the audience because they didn't have like books on paper back then, and they definitely didn't have the internet. So the way to pass on history, the way to tell these stories was verbally. So they were designed to be read out loud and enjoyed out loud. All right, you guys, so on OSS Connect, your first assignment this week is to do a little pre-reading exercise. I'm going to give you a vocabulary list. You will be tested on this at the end of the unit, so make sure you have those words, start studying them, write down the definitions. That way you're prepared for the end. You're also going to be asked to analyze like the metaphorical meaning of the things Odysseus faces along his journey. So as we start, keep that in mind. All right, we're going to begin with chapter 1. Homer calls it book 1. Now, this is called The Goddess Intervenes. The Goddess Intervenes. Okay, I'm going to put the book like this so that you can see me and it's not weird. All right. Sing in me, Muse, and through me tell the story of that man skilled in all ways of contending, the wanderer, harried for years on end after he plunged the stronghold on the proud height of Troy. He saw the townlands and learned the minds of many distant men, and weathered many bitter nights and days in his deep heart at sea, while they fought only to save his life, to bring his shipmates home. But not by will nor valor could he save them, for their own recklessness destroyed them all. Children and fools, they killed and feasted on the cattle of Lord Helios the sun, and he who moves all day through heaven took from their eyes the dawn of their return. Of these adventures, Muse, daughter of Zeus, tell us in our time. Lift the great song again. So in this introduction, like in Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare kind of introduced a prologue for the story. Homer does something similar. So this chapter 1, the goddess intervenes, is all about Athena appealing to Zeus to help Odysseus, who has been wandering for 10 years on the seas to find his way home to his family on Ithaca. Now, while Odysseus has been gone, his son Telemachus has grown to manhood, and his wife Penelope has been besieged by suitors wishing to marry her and gain Odysseus's wealth. The suitors have taken up residence in her own house and are constantly feasting on the family's cattle, sheep, and goats. They dishonor Odysseus and his family by doing this. Taking Athena's advice, Telemachus travels to Pylos for word of his father. Meanwhile, on Ithaca, the evil suitors plot to kill Telemachus when he returns, because they're that into getting his Odysseus's wealth and his kingdom, because Odysseus is king there. So that's book 1. I'm going to take a picture of what I read, put it on OSS Connect. You can read along or read it again after I've read it to you. Now we're going to move on to book 5. Actually, we're going to skip all the way to chapter 5, book 5. And this is Calypso the Sweet Nymph. For 7 of the 10 years Odysseus has spent wandering the Mediterranean Sea, he has been held captive by the goddess Calypso on her island. As book 5 begins, Zeus sends the god Hermes to tell Calypso to release Odysseus. However, she's only to help him build a raft, so she can't do too much. And Odysseus must sail for 20 days before landing on the island of Scheria, where he will be helped in his effort to return home. So that's kind of background on chapter 5, book 5. Calypso the Sweet Nymph. No words were lost on Hermes, the wayfinder, who bent to tie his beautiful sandals on, ambrosial, golden, that carried him over water or over endless land in a swish of the wind, and took the wand with which he charms asleep, or when he wills awake, the eyes of men. So wand in hand, he paced into the air, shot from period down to sea level, and veered to skim the swell, a gull patrolling between the wave crests of the desolate sea will dip to catch a fish and douse his wings. No higher above the white caps Hermes flew, until the distant island lay ahead. Then rising shoreward from the violent ocean, he swept up to the cave. Divine Calypso, the mistress of the isle, was now at home. Upon her hearthstone a great fire blazing scented the farthest shores with cedar smoke and smoke of thyme, and singing high and low in her sweet voice, before her loom a-weaving, she passed her golden shuttle to and fro. A deep wood grew outside with summer leaves of alder and black poplar, pungent cypress. Ornate birds here rested their stretched wings, horned owls, falcons, cormorants, long-tongued, beach-combing birds, and followers of the sea. Around the smooth-walled cave, a crooking vine held purple clusters under ply of green, and 4 springs bubbling up near one another, shallow and clear, took channels here and there through beds of violets and tender parsley. Even a god who found this place would gaze and feel his heart beat with delight. So Hermes did, but when he had gazed his fill, he entered the wide cave. Now face to face, the magical Calypso recognized him, as all immortal gods know one another on sight, though seeming strangers far from home. But he saw nothing of great Odysseus, who sat apart as 1,000 times before and racked his own heart groaning, with eyes wet scanning the bare horizon of the sea. So Calypso then invites Hermes to her table for food and drink, asking why he has come. Hermes explains that he has brought with him an order from Zeus that Calypso must not detain Odysseus any longer, but send him on his way home. She reluctantly obeys, agreeing to offer Odysseus her advice about how to get home. So this is how that part goes. The strong god glittering left her as he spoke, and now her ladyship, having given heed to Zeus's mandate, went to find Odysseus in his stone seat to seaward, tear on tear brimming in his eyes. The sweet days of his lifetime were running out in anguish over his exile, for long ago the nymph has ceased to please. Though he fought shy of her and her desire, he lay with her each night, for she compelled him. But when day came, he sat on the rocky shore and broke his own heart, groaning, with eyes wet, scanning the bare horizon of the sea. Now she stood near him in her beauty, saying, "O forlorn man, be still. Here you need grieve no more. You need not feel your life consumed here. I have pondered, and I shall help you go." Swiftly she turned and led him to her cave, and they went in, the mortal and immortal. He took the chair left empty now by Hermes, where the divine Calypso placed before him victuals and drink of men. Then she sat down facing Odysseus, while her serving maids brought her nectar and ambrosia to her side. Then each one's hands went out on each one's feast until they had their pleasure, and she said, "Son of Laertes, versatile Odysseus, I offer thee, after these years with me, you still desire your old home? Even so, I wish you well. If you could see it all before you go, all the adversity you face at sea, you would stay here and guard this house and be immortal, though you wanted her forever, that bride for whom you pine each day. Can I be less desirable than she is? Less interesting? Less beautiful? Can mortals compare with goddesses in grace and form?" To this, strategist Odysseus answered, "My lady goddess, here is no cause for anger. My quiet Penelope, how well I know, would seem a shade before your majesty, death and old age being unknown to you. Well, she must die. Yet it is true, each day I long for home, long for the sight of home." Now, with Calypso's help, Odysseus does build a raft, and he sets out to sea. For 17 days he sails until he is in sight of Scheria. For 3 more days he is pummeled by storms and finally swims for the island. He makes it safely ashore and crawls to rest under some bushes. A man in a distant field, no hearth fires near, will hide a fresh band in his bed of embers to keep a spark alive for the next day. So in the leaves Odysseus hid himself, while over him Athena showered sleep that his distress should end. And soon, in quiet sleep she sealed his cherished eyes. So that's excerpts from Book 1 and Book 5 of the Odyssey. And we're going to stop there. I'm going to put everything I read on OSS Connect in PDF file. Please read it yourself. Read along with the video here on YouTube. And I will have your assignments up. 2 assignments this week. And I hope you like the story so far. All right. Bye, guys.